Republican Party could be in for a long, cold winter themselves. The Republican Party could be in the midst of an identity crisis. One faction of the party is rallying behind Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who some believe should be punished for supporting dangerous conspiracy theories and endorsing violence against Democrats. Meanwhile, GOP Congresswoman Liz Cheney is facing criticism for voting in support of impeachment for former President Trump. So CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett is in Washington with the very latest on this to guide us through what is happening with the Republican Party. I'm pretty sure even members of the party are wondering what is happening. Here you have, a staunch, celebrated conservative, Liz Cheney, who is now finding herself on the hot seat. And then you have sort of a newbie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and her, adherence to QAnon and other conspiracy theories, who is also on the hot seat. You would not think these two women would find themselves in similar situations. So what is happening with the Republican Party right now?
I'll get to that in just a second, Anne-Marie, but I think it's fair to say that whatever happened in Gobbler's Knob, since about March, 14th of last year, every day has been Groundhog Day, hasn't it? Basically.
That's so true.
Have I missed something? Anyway, what's happening with the Republican Party is, to use a phrase you put in the intro, identity crisis. And it didn't have to be this way, and you wouldn't think it would be this way. Let's just put this in the simplest terms possible. Liz Cheney was elected by her colleagues just a few days ago as the number 3 ranking House Republican. She's now being questioned because she said something that was true, that President Trump was not upholding the Constitution by suggesting that his vice president could somehow do something on January 6th to change the counting of electoral votes certified by every state in the Union. He did not uphold the Constitution, and Liz Cheney said that. And because the president said that, some people thought the Capitol ought to be stormed to stop something from happening that was fully legal and fully in conformance with the Constitution. Liz Cheney said those things and voted her conscience accordingly. And now she's being questioned by some House Republicans who want to dislodge her from that elected leadership position for saying something that is constitutional and true and casting a vote of conscience. Meanwhile, many of those same Republicans who want to get at Liz Cheney think there's nothing wrong with Marjorie Taylor Greene, whose variety of conspiracy theories runs a reckless gambit in every single direction. 9/11 denialism, suggesting that solar laser beams controlled by Jewish people started wildfires in California, that mass shootings were false flag or hoax events, and many other QAnon-related conspiracy theories. So you would not think this would be necessarily ground on which Republicans would fight over. Conspiracy theories that detract from the party's image will run away suburban voters, will annoy, if not alienate, potential party donors. All that's still being given some kind of traction within some House Republican circles, and yet someone who said something that's true about the Constitution, true about the former president, casts a vote of conscience in alignment with those true statements, needs to be sacked from her elected leadership position. That is the tension within the Republican Party. And Mitch McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, who doesn't typically weigh in on any House of Representatives matter at all, let alone within his own party, basically said what Marjorie Taylor Greene represents is a cancer. And if it is allowed to exist and persist, it will do what all cancers do: eat away at the foundation of the party, make it weaker, not stronger, and possibly kill it.
Is it significant that even though we heard Mitch McConnell say that, which many people thought was, was a significant statement in and of itself, he didn't actually name Marjorie Taylor Greene? Am I making too much out of that? Or,
no,
is that
look,
something strategic on his part?
If you're a Harry Potter fan, it's like, oh, the congresswoman who must not be named. It's also, I'm not gonna give her the benefit of naming her. She's so insignificant to me as the Senate Minority Leader that I'm not even going to give her it. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. It's significant enough in the sense that Mitch McConnell knows what he is saying and knows how it will be interpreted. And I would also point out, this is something that I think is worth looking at in Marjorie Taylor Greene's response on Twitter. oh, all Republicans do is lose gracefully, and that's why we're losing our country and the party's falling apart. This spoken by someone who has won one general election in her political career from a congressional district in Georgia where the Republican advantage is 27 points. No Democrat running in that district has ever accumulated more than 30% of the vote. Trump won it by 75%. What does she know at all about running in a competitive district, a swing district, in a House race, let alone statewide race? And trust me, if Republicans do really want to win back the House in 2022, and they say they do, and I believe them, and regain their Senate majority in 2022, they're going to have to win in closely contested places. And you don't do that by alienating suburbanites, donors, and embracing conspiracy theories of the kind that Marjorie Taylor Greene does. That is not a formula for governing. It's not a formula for winning. It is only a formula for extremism and conspiracy theory mongering. And if the Republicans actually believe that's their party's future, then we are watching in real time the crack up of a once great national party.
Okay, I want to follow that, but before I want to just kind of put the McConnell statement to bed. McConnell is the Senate Minority Leader, not the House.
Nope.
Taylor Greene is a member of the House. Kevin McCarthy, we've seen, initially sort of point the finger at former President Donald Trump for the assault on the Capitol, but then eventually going down to Florida and visiting with him. Is it significant that Mitch McConnell felt the need to say something, but we haven't heard very much from Kevin McCarthy?
Well, so Kevin McCarthy has to try to do something that, from his vantage point, looks complicated. I'm not sure it is, but from his vantage point, it looks complicated. What are the complicating things? Well, he's got these factions in the House Republican Conference. As I said before, you shouldn't have a factional divide over truth versus lies, but there is one. And he's also trying to figure out what former President Trump is going to do. And is President Trump going to mollify and elevate conspiracy theorists like Marjorie Taylor Greene simply because they like him? Or is he going to say, no, I am the leader in absentia, because I'm no longer president of the Republican Party, and I'm going to help it unify, focus on winning a House majority, focus on winning a Senate majority, and do so by emphasizing things that Republicans all agree on and that don't cause deep fissures within its ranks. And Marjorie Taylor Greene causes those deep fissures. Kevin McCarthy is trying to figure out all of this and trying to say, well, how do I protect Liz Cheney and how do I punish Marjorie Taylor Greene without dividing my party in half? Well, one argument that you might put forward to your colleagues is Liz Cheney said something that was true, defended the Constitution, and cast a vote based on her conscience. If that gets you wrung out of a leadership position in the Republican Party, this party's over. Marjorie Taylor Greene believes in conspiracy theories and is deflating, if not besmirching, the image of the National Republican Party. That's a harm to all of us, and we have to do something about that. That's essentially the question. Kevin McCarthy doesn't want to really confront that in public. He's trying to confront that quietly within all sorts of backroom conversations among House Republicans and try to resolve it in some way to the least detriment of the party. But sometimes you have to make clear, unequivocal statements about what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. And McCarthy's going to have to do that sooner rather than later.
Really quick question. Is there a break also between Republican voters and the Republican Party? Marjorie Taylor Greene was elected by Republicans in her area. They still continue to support her. And, increasingly now we're getting more reporting about the financing of the rally on January 6th. Maybe not the overrunning of the Capitol, but at least the financing of the rally. And, a lot of that money came from some deep pocket Republican donors.
Sure.
I'm wondering if there's, maybe a gap between how the Republican Party and some of the leadership likes to see themselves versus, what voters are saying and what donors are saying.
Well, this is an important question, Anne-Marie. And for Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene is kind of a sideshow because the central problem for Republican politics right now is, do you or do you not feel you owe the nation an apology for giving voice and fuel to the big lie? And the big lie is that Donald Trump won this election in a landslide. He did not. He lost it. He lost it by 7 million votes in the popular vote, and he lost it by the exact same margin he won it in the Electoral College in 2016, which he then described as a landslide. The president lost re-election fair and square, but Republicans have been unwilling as a party to essentially say this rude truth to the president, and more importantly, to Republican Party voters. They either stared at the top of their shoes while the president continued to press all sorts of reckless and legally baseless challenges in the courts, or say, well, the president has a right to complain. Yes, he might have a right to complain in theory, in a general sense, but he doesn't have a right to undermine the Constitution, own belief in our own institutions and the way elections are conducted. And when they've been certified, as they were, through the process that has always worked before, Republicans said, no, that's not enough. And they said, this still has to be challenged. And even after the storming of the Capitol, many in the House Republican conference voted to say, no, I'm not going to accept these certified electoral votes. I'm going to challenge them. That's the bigger central problem. And Marjorie Greene is related to that, but she's sort of a sideshow to that. And until the Republican Party comes to grips with the big lie and its role in propagating and giving fuel to that big lie, and then seeing that big lie manifest itself in criminal and violent and ugly ways in the storming of the Capitol on January 6th, they're going to have to come to terms with that at some level. One thing I will say about all of this, Anne-Marie, is that it has made bipartisan negotiations a safe place. 10 Senate Republicans went to the White House yesterday. The White House that, remember, just a month ago, most Republicans said Joe Biden should never go into, okay? They're now participating in face-to-face conversations with the duly elected President of the United States because that act of ideological apostasy is safer politically than being in this clown car that Marjorie Taylor Greene and those like her would like to drive the party off a cliff from.
Major Garrett giving us the silver lining that we so badly need right now. Thank you so much.